Okay, so it's one of those why videos where I'm going to open a forbidden door all of my own because lots of people have messaged me giving their opinions on it and saying, you should talk about it, you should talk about it. And that's fair, we are a collective, so I shall talk about it. So just to get it out of the way, I thought everything that WWE did with the Rolling Loud Festival a couple of weeks ago was absolutely brilliant. I mean, just visually, I was like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting. And sometimes that's enough for me. The other side to this argument, though, that I have been informed about for the last few days is that while WWE did put themselves into a good opportune position, they didn't take a baseball bat, kapow, and smash it out of the arena, especially when it comes down to what good pro wrestling is. And if you do abide by that viewpoint, then yeah, WWE just got taught one big old lesson. Why? Here's why. For starters, yes, I know, I get it. If you did divert your eyes and look into that crowd at the Rolling Loud Festival, not exactly every single person was going, oh my gosh, wrestling is amazing, I'm having the time of my life. But that's always going to be somewhat hard when you do these kind of things, because nobody was there for sports entertainment, they were there for music. Like if you go to a pizza restaurant and somebody comes and gives you some salmon, you're going to take that salmon and throw it into their face because you wanted some cheese on toast. So while Bianca Belair versus Carmella and Angelo Dawkins versus Chad Gable were certainly passable wrestling matches, you did need to have a certain wrestling brain and a certain wrestling education to totally get them. And they certainly weren't the type of thing where you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Look at that guy doing flippy-dippy-doo-dah stuff. So essentially, I'm talking about Ricochet. Or you could have gone and got Rey Mysterio and just said, hey Rey, go be Rey Mysterio. Or even Reginald. Look what Reggie's been doing over the last few shows. He's just been jumping, and he's over here, and he's over there, and oh my God, he's on his head. Oh no, he landed on his feet. He's really fun. So one of the arguments that did come across is that once again, we were just presenting all this madness without any context, which also ties into the bigger problem that WWE just doesn't seem very good at making brand new stars. While bringing AEW into the conversation always sends everybody crazy. To make my point, or at least to make your point, I kind of have to. Because while WWE is still doing very well when you look into stats and numbers, and sure, it's only when you compare it to the olden days we go, oh my gosh, what's happening? AEW, using the same barometers, is kind of catching up. Now, there is nothing wrong with this. Whether you're an AEW fan or you're a WWE fan, when you do have competition, it lights a fire under everybody's ass, and that means people have to be more creative and they have to serve you better, and it's all about you. We've just seen what happened over the last 18 months. We need fans, otherwise what's the point? One of the things that All Elite Wrestling is doing very well is introducing new characters into their own universe and telling you stories that you can understand week by week by week. And I don't mind that WWE has their own playbook, and I don't mind that WWE has their own style, but if you're not getting it out there to the wider audience and explaining how it works, then everybody is going to be confused. Or more to the point, if your strategy isn't clicking, maybe you need to change your strategy. And a great example of this is Roman Reigns. Look at the tribal chief we have now, and it is absolutely baffling that we didn't pull the trigger on this years ago. You remember everything in 2016 and 17 and 18 and 19, or whatever the hell it was, when Roman just kept getting booed and booed and booed, but WWE stuck their foot in the grass or the mud. They were like, nope, we're not changing because we think we know best. You can't have that kind of crazy relationship with your audience. It just doesn't work. So it's taken us 8 years before he became the head of the table, and as everybody in the know has been saying, that's just Roman Reigns turned up to 42 or whatever. It just seems absolutely crazy that you wouldn't have done it sooner. This then connects into the likes of Bobby Lashley and Nikki Ash and Natalya and Tamina and Apollo Crews and a bunch of other people who may wear gold over their shoulder all around their waist, but in July 2021, despite being able to describe themselves as a champion, lost. Or at least they were beaten on TV. And of course, the reason we did do that is for 50-50 booking in order to get to some kind of title match or in order to try and justify some kind of nuts rematch. And that concept is just absolutely past its sell-by date because it means nobody can go anywhere. You take 2 steps forward and you take 42 steps back. And also, are you maybe going, oh, Simon, you didn't mention Bobby Lashley? Yes, but while he lost, at least it was part of a storyline, and he came out the other side like 10 times more powerful than he was. Apollo Crews would be a far better piece of evidence. I mean, when was the last time he even defended the Intercontinental title? This then does fall into other people who also could have been stars. I mean, Retribution was an absolute nightmare, and it was none of those guys' fault. They weren't given an opportunity. I don't understand what's going on with Karrion Kross and Keith Lee, but again, that's another argument for another video. But just take someone like Mansoor. He had like a 52 winning match streak, and he just turned up and he lost. And it wasn't even a pinfall. I think it was a disqualification or a count out. So I don't care who you are, that sucks. So really that's not welcome. And when you see other companies who do seem to be doing it a little bit better, it just scratches your head even more. Take a company like Impact. If you are into Impact Wrestling, They are always going out of their way to try and present you faces and trying to present you this and say, hey, maybe you should watch this wrestler now. And so you do. Let me just throw some names at you. Deonna Purrazzo, Moose, Chris Bay, Josh Alexander, Ace Austin. I worry that if they did get put on Raw and SmackDown tomorrow, they'd kind of be treated like Cedric Alexander, and Cedric Alexander should not be being treated how Cedric Alexander is being treated. This then also ties into the constant rematches and the lack of new faces on our Monday and Friday programs. And if you do watch me on Ups and Downs, you'll know that I have shown you how often WWE relies on either the distraction finish or the disqualification finish. I actually think we're going to get past 100 before we get to the end of the year. That should never be a thing unless we're talking about clean finishes. It's also yet even more evidence why wrestlers aren't climbing up the card, because how can you justify yourself to your fans when you lose via DQ, or you win via distraction, or you just keep doing the most devastating move in all the sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up? It's fine here and there, but when every single person is doing it, they all just smudge and merge into one. You'd have to imagine some of this comes from the fact that WWE has kind of moved from being a promoter to a content creator, but that also means they've got bucket loads of cash, and good for them. After all, it is a business, and the name of the game is to make as much money as possible, so I would never begrudge them that. It's not like it just happened either. They built this up over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but when you start looking long-term, and you start looking into the future, there has to be a part when all of a sudden it does go bad, because if people aren't having fun, then what is even the point? The meaning of life. I suppose all this is a way to get back round to this Rolling Loud festival, because what you really wanted to achieve there was for at least a handful of people to go, wow, I've never seen pro wrestling, or I haven't watched pro wrestling for a long time. This looks like it's super duper good. Maybe I'll sit down and maybe I'll check out SmackDown. Look, do not get me wrong. I think SmackDown is a terrific show right now, but there's also like Raw in the corner, and sometimes Raw, they're like a slap in the face. And look, like I say, I've just taken everybody's opinions and I pushed it into one here, and we don't know that this didn't work. It's only been a short amount of time. We may get ratings in a couple of weeks and it may be at 42 million. Then you have to start questioning how many people are at this festival. Something doesn't add up. I think the numbers have been fudged. But I totally got it, and I totally understood where people were coming from. Why didn't we just put on the most crazy, over-the-top, entertaining wrestling match that we could, instead of going, well, we're WWE and this is what WWE does? And again, there's nothing wrong with it, but you have to be like you or I to totally get this. And to wrap that up, in case you don't know what that is, being a massive wrestling nerd. And I'm going to guess once more, if you've gone to a music festival, well, you could be a wrestling nerd, but by and large, you're probably not. So it is a lesson, and it's a lesson that hopefully WWE will learn, and it's not like the foundations aren't there. I mean, look how good all this John Cena, Roman Reigns stuff is. And I know, I get it, John Cena, he's a super duper star, but the story is fun, the story kind of makes sense, it's also absolutely kind of nonsensical at the same time. But look at Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. That's much better. That had me hooping and hollering. It was so damn fun. So it's not like they don't know what they're doing. They just have to take a sit back and make sure they're doing it as much as they possibly can. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about all of this. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on over to whatculture.com, where you could read articles like this and get in the comments and go, oh, I'm so mad, I can't believe it. You can come say hello on social media, and you're here on YouTube. Take your own finger of power and get to clicking, and I promise you, you'll probably never run out of videos. My name's Simon for What Culture. Thank you for watching the Why series, and again, sometimes it's fun to play devil's advocate. Why can't we take everybody's opinion and go, oh man, really great point. I mean, I don't really agree with you, but I'm glad you brought it up. No, instead we're like, how dare you come in my house and say something different to me? And then you get out a shotgun and you try and shoot them, although you do this all through Twitter. Because of course, if we actually met up like real people, we probably would be happy chaps. Who even knows? I don't, but I love you all the same, and I'll see you soon.